The bet was a spark in a powder keg, and we were both too stubborn to back down. In a crowded Seattle bar, under neon lights and the pulse of indie rock, I, Marcus Reed, locked eyes with my lifelong rival, Ethan Caldwell, and threw down the gauntlet. Pretend to be queer, act like a couple, and the first to crack calls the other daddy in front of everyone. What started as a drunken dare would unravel everything we thought we knew about ourselves. We were an unlikely pair, always had been. I'm 25, a black graphic designer with a quick wit and a chip on my shoulder, raised in the vibrant chaos of Capitol Hill. Ethan, also 25, is a white firefighter with a chiseled jaw and a smug grin, the kind of guy who grew up in the suburbs of Bellevue and never let me forget it. We'd been at each other's throats since high school, track meets, debate club, even vying for the same summer jobs. Our rivalry was a dance, sharp and predictable, until that night at the Rusty Anchor when a few too many whiskeys turned our usual barbs into something reckless. Bet you can't handle it, Caldwell. I'd taunted, leaning across the sticky table, the crowd's laughter egging me on. You'd flinch the second I got too close. His blue eyes glinted with that infuriating confidence. You're on, Reed. But when you break, you're calling me daddy in front of this whole damn bar. The rules were simple. We'd play the part of a couple in public, hold hands, flirt, act convincing, for 1 month. First to pull away or admit it was too much would lose. The stakes felt absurdly high for something so juvenile, but neither of us could resist the chance to one-up the other. We shook on it, hands lingering a second too long, and I ignored the strange jolt that shot through me. The next morning, hungover and regretting every life choice, I met Ethan at a bustling coffee shop in Pike Place Market. The air smelled of roasted beans and salty Puget Sound breeze. He was already there, sprawled in a chair, his flannel sleeves rolled up to show off forearms that, annoyingly, looked like they could bench press me. "Ready to lose, Marcus?" he asked, sliding a latte my way. I smirked, grabbing the cup. "You're going to be crying daddy by next week." Our first test was simple. Walk through the market, arm in arm, like any other couple. Easy, right? Except my heart was pounding as we stepped into the crowd. His arm was warm, solid, and I could feel eyes on us. Tourists, vendors, locals. Seattle's progressive, sure, but two guys, one black, one white, playing at romance in broad daylight still drew looks. I braced for Ethan to tense up, to give me that first point, but he just grinned and pulled me closer. "Relax, babe," he said, loud enough for a passing couple to hear. My face burned, but I shot back. "Keep up, sweetheart." The game was on. By day 3, we'd upped the ante. Dinner at a cozy Italian spot in Belltown, candles flickering between us. I leaned in, twirling pasta, and said, "You know, you're not bad at this." Almost convincing. Ethan's eyes locked on mine, and for a split second, his smirk faltered. "You're not terrible either," he murmured, his voice lower than I expected. The waiter assumed we were together, comping us a dessert for the cute couple. We didn't correct him. Instead, we split the tiramisu, our spoons clinking, and I wondered why my chest felt so tight. The thing about pretending is it creeps into you. By the end of the first week, our fake dates, art galleries, waterfront strolls, felt less like a performance. Ethan's laugh, once grating, started to sound warm. My sarcastic jabs softened into something playful. We'd linger at crosswalks, hands brushing, and I'd catch myself wondering what his calloused fingers would feel like laced through mine for real. I shoved those thoughts down. This was a game. I wasn't queer. Neither was he, right? But the city saw us differently. At a drag show in Capitol Hill, a queen named Sapphire Vixen called us out mid-performance. "Look at these lovebirds," she crowed, pointing at us in the front row. The crowd cheered, and Ethan, bold as ever, slung an arm around me, whispering, "Play along, Marcus." I did, leaning into him, my heart racing not from the spotlight, but from the heat of his breath on my ear. No one flinched. No one lost. Yet. The second week tested us in ways I hadn't anticipated. Seattle's autumn was in full swing. Crisp air, leaves crunching underfoot, the city glowing under overcast skies. Our bet had become the talk of our friend group, who treated it like a reality show, placing side bets on who'd crack first. My best friend, Lila, a 27-year-old barista with a penchant for chaos, cornered me at a Fremont cafe. "Marcus, you're glowing. This fake boyfriend thing's getting to you, huh?" I scoffed, but her words stuck like gum on my shoe. Ethan and I pushed harder. A movie night at his tiny apartment in Queen and turned into a battle of wills. We sat on his couch, thighs touching, watching some rom-com neither of us cared about. The bet demanded closeness, so I draped an arm over his shoulder, expecting him to shrug me off. He didn't. Instead, he leaned into me, his head resting lightly against mine. "You're warm," he said, casual, like it was nothing. My pulse spiked. "Don't get used to it." I shot back, but my voice was shakier than I wanted. The real challenge came at a friend's house party in West Seattle. The backyard was strung with fairy lights, music thumping, and our friends egged us on to prove our couple status. Ethan, never one to back down, grabbed my hand and pulled me into a slow dance. His grip was firm, his eyes locked on mine, and the world shrank to just us. His breath, my heartbeat, the sway of our bodies. "You're not bad at this, Reed," he whispered, his lips close enough to feel the warmth. I wanted to flinch, to call it off, but something deeper kept me there, swaying with him under the stars. That night, I couldn't sleep. My tiny studio apartment felt too small, my thoughts too loud. Was I playing a role, or was this something else? Ethan was my rival, the guy who'd stolen my prom date, outrun me at track, and always had to be better. But now, his smile lingered in my mind, and I hated how much I liked it. The next day, we volunteered at a community center in Rainier Valley, part of our couple act for a charity event. We painted murals with kids, and Ethan was a natural, joking, tossing paintbrushes, getting blue smudges on his cheek. One kid, a sharp 10-year-old named Jamal, asked, "Are you guys, like, in love?" Ethan froze, just for a second, and I saw my chance. "Yeah, Jamal, he's totally smitten," I teased, nudging Ethan. He recovered fast, ruffling Jamal's hair. "Don't listen to him, kid. He's the one who's whipped." The kid laughed, but Ethan's glance at me held something new. Curiosity, maybe, or fear. By the end of week 2, the line between game and reality was blurring. We'd walk through Pioneer Square, hands clasped, and I'd notice how his thumb grazed mine, deliberate and slow. At a jazz club in Columbia City, he bought me a drink, his fingers brushing mine as he handed it over. "For my fake boyfriend," he said, but his eyes didn't look fake. I told myself it was the bet, the adrenaline, the need to win. But when he walked me to my door that night and lingered, saying, "Night, Marcus," in that low, soft voice, I almost invited him in. Our friends noticed. Lila texted me, "You're falling for him, idiot." I ignored her, but the truth was clawing at me. Ethan wasn't just my rival anymore. He was someone I looked for in every crowd, someone whose laugh made my day better. And that scared the hell out of me. Week 3 brought cracks in the facade. The bet had us teetering on an edge, and Seattle's rainy nights didn't help. We were at a rooftop bar in Ballard, the city skyline glittering through the mist. Ethan looked good, too good, in a leather jacket, his blonde hair damp from the drizzle. We leaned against the railing, shoulders touching, playing our parts for the crowd. But when he turned to me, his face inches from mine, and said, "You're making this harder than it should be," I didn't know if he meant the bet or something else. The tension broke at a queer book reading in Capitol Hill. The author, a trans woman named Elena, read a passage about love defying expectations. Ethan's hand rested on my knee under the table, a bold move for the bet, but it felt too real. I didn't pull away. After, we walked through California Anderson Park, the air thick with the scent of wet grass. He stopped by the fountain, his expression serious. "Marcus, what are we doing?" he asked. I wanted to laugh it off, keep the game going, but my throat tightened. "Winning," I said, but it sounded hollow. The next day, disaster struck. At a diner in Georgetown, a group of guys at the next table started whispering, their eyes on us. One, a burly dude with a trucker hat, muttered something about fags. Ethan's jaw clenched, and I braced for him to back off, to flinch. Instead, he reached across the table, grabbed my hand, and stared the guy down. "Problem?" he asked, voice like steel. The guy backed off, but Ethan's grip on my hand didn't loosen until we left. Outside, he let out a shaky breath. That was intense. I nodded, my heart pounding not from fear but from him. His courage, his defiance. That night, we ended up at my place, rain tapping the windows. The bet had us cooking dinner together, a cute couple thing for Instagram. But as we chopped vegetables, our elbows brushing, the air felt charged. He bumped my shoulder, smirking. "You're a terrible cook, Reed." I flicked flour at him, and he laughed, grabbing my wrist. We froze, faces close, his eyes searching mine. For a moment, I thought he'd kiss me. For a moment, I wanted him to. But he let go, stepping back. "We're good at this," he said, voice rough. I nodded, unable to speak. The truth hit me later, alone in my bed. I wasn't just playing anymore. I liked him. Ethan, my rival, the guy I'd spent years hating. And I had no idea if he felt the same or if this was all still a game to him. The bet was supposed to be fun, a way to one-up each other, but it was tearing me apart. By the end of week 3, we were at a queer film festival in Fremont, cuddled up in the back row for appearances. His arm was around me, and I let myself lean into him, my head on his shoulder. The movie was about two men finding love against the odds, and I felt Ethan's breath hitch during a kissing scene. When the lights came up, he didn't move away. Neither did I. We sat there, silent, as the crowd filed out, and I wondered if he was as scared as I was. The final week was a reckoning. The bet's deadline loomed, and neither of us had flinched, but the weight of it was crushing. Seattle's gray skies mirrored my mood as we planned our last date at Golden Gardens Park, a beachside spot where the Puget Sound stretched endless and cold. We'd end the bet where it began, at the Rusty Anchor, in front of our friends, declaring a winner. But I didn't care about winning anymore. I cared about him. At the park, we sat on a bench, the same one from the image prompt, watching the sunset paint the water gold. Ethan was quiet, his usual bravado gone. I broke the silence. "What happens after this?" I asked, my voice barely above the waves. He looked at me, his blue eyes raw. "I don't know, Marcus. I didn't expect this." He gestured between us, and my heart leapt. We talked, really talked, for the first time. He told me about growing up in Bellevue, the pressure to be the perfect son, the firefighter who always had to be tough. I shared my own story, being black in a mostly white high school, proving myself through art, hiding my insecurities behind sarcasm. The bet had forced us to see each other, not as rivals, but as people, and somewhere along the way, I'd fallen for him. That night at the Rusty Anchor, the bar was packed, our friends chanting for the bet's finale. Ethan and I stood in the center, the neon lights casting shadows on his face. "Time's up," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Who flinches?" He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. "I don't want to," he said, so quiet only I could hear. My breath caught. "Me neither." In front of everyone, I took a chance. I grabbed his hand, pulled him close, and kissed him. Not for the bet, not for the crowd, but for me. For us. The bar erupted in cheers, but I only heard his soft gasp, felt his lips move against mine. When we pulled back, his eyes were wide, but he was smiling. "You win," he whispered. I shook my head. "We both do." The aftermath wasn't easy. We had to navigate what it meant to be us, two guys who'd started as rivals, pretended to be lovers, and ended up somewhere real. Some friends didn't get it. Others, like Lila, claimed they saw it coming. The world wasn't always kind, but Seattle's heart held space for us. We kept going. Dates that weren't for show, quiet nights where his hand in mine felt like home. The bet taught me something I'd never expected. Love doesn't care about labels or rivalries. It finds you when you're busy fighting it, in the spaces between pride and fear. Ethan and I weren't just a story of a dare gone wrong or right. We were proof that sometimes the person you're meant to be with is the one you've been challenging all along.